Deep in the heart of what today is known as the Czech Republic lies a castle known to be one of the more haunting locations in all of Europe. It is called Houska Castle, also known by the local Czechs as Brána do pekel, the gateway to hell. This is a special edition of Past Access DYK Dark, Haunted Houska Castle. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of DYK Dark. I'm your host, Pete Collman. I'm in a very special location right now at Houska Castle. It's one of the more haunted castles in all of Czech Republic and also in Central Europe. There's a gateway to hell here, as they say. What you see behind me here is more of a Renaissance-style castle that was done in the late 1500s. But what makes Houska Castle very unique is the fact that it was built in Gothic style in the late 13th century, but near nothing. There's no waterway here, no river, no trade route of any kind. So why would they build it here? Well, here's the reason. It was originally constructed in the 13th century, between 1253 and 1278, during the reign of Ottokar II of Bohemia. The castle, which was built in the early Gothic style, had already been coined as a place of evil happenings for decades prior, mostly due to what geologists today say was a deep cavernous fissure in the rock. Local peasants took this chasm to be a gateway to hell. Look, it had all the hallmarks of a place of evil, a bottomless pit that produced the smell of sulfur. As time went on, legends say that the pit was never filled, even with the constant attempts to throw in rocks, wood, and other items. People spoke of half-man, half-animal creatures escaping from the pit in the dark of night to terrorize the area. Livestock would be mysteriously slaughtered, and the blame would squarely be placed on the demon half-breeds from hell. The curiosity grew on what could be at the bottom of this pit. It is said that several of the village prisoners who had been sentenced to death were given a possible pardon if they agreed to be lowered by rope into the bottomless pit and then speak of what they discovered. Some mentioned nothing of note, while others panicked at the sheer thought of the unknown. One such prisoner was lowered in for a mere few moments and then began screaming uncontrollably. The villagers pulled him up, and to their shock, this once young-looking man now appeared to be old, aged beyond his years, with white hair and in a state of frozen shock. He never regained his sanity. With stories like this, the townfolk had enough. So what can good God-fearing townfolk do in a situation like this? Well, you guessed it. Build a chapel on top of it and sanctify the area. This would lead to building a fortress on top of this rocky mount, yet it still would not stop the sightings of unexplained phenomena or blood-curdling screams from the pit. King Ottokar II decided to better fortify the area with a nearby imposing castle named Bezdej, and also provided funds to rebuild Houska and the chapel on top of the gateway to hell. This is one of the curiosities that still stands out today, because Houska Castle is near no river or stream of importance, no trade route to be defended, no real importance really, other than the known tales of its position on top of a portal of evil. Some say it was an attempt by the king to quell the fears of the locals. With building a more substantial fortress and a holy chapel, this might ease the fears. Nonetheless, the story of Houska Castle was far from over. So here at Houska Castle, it's definitely not an easy place to get to. You're going to have to park about a half a mile down the road and actually walk up. I actually drove up here in a wheelchair, but I get to this part and of course it's very difficult. But you can see that we're in the middle of nowhere here in the Czech Republic, and a very odd place to have a castle, especially this castle which is the gateway to hell. The story goes back a long ways with lots of legends, so let's dive into some of those legends that kind of surround this area that's so important to this story. The hour-long drive from Prague to Houska Castle takes you through quaint Czech hamlets and idyllic countryside views. Through this natural beauty, it is difficult to imagine that nearly 400 years ago, the marauding Swedish armies were taking what they wanted, running roughshod throughout Bohemia and Moravia. The tail end of the 30 Years' War left much in ruins, and one Swedish commander by the name of Arant took full advantage of the situation. The locals of Melnik knew him as the Robber Arant, or the Sorcerer of Black Magic. He and his marauders took claim of the ruins of Houska Castle. No longer members of the Swedish army, he was in business all for himself. A self-proclaimed alchemist and master of the occult, he knew of Houska's reputation and performed ceremonies and experiments that much of the time involved kidnapped local women. Fed up with the fear Arant spread across the region, 2 local hunters took on the assassination attempt, stormed the castle, called out his name, and once he stuck his head out the window, he was shot through the eye with a blessed silver ball shot, killing him instantly. The robbers were captured and turned over to the authorities for the reward of 100 thaler. After the war, the Habsburgs issued an order to demolish all castles occupied by the Swedes. The nightmare was finally over, at least for some time. Next time on Past Access, come with us to discover the beauty of the Veneto region of Italy. From the timelessness of the floating city of Venice and the enchanting legends of Verona, to the peaceful waters of Lago di Garda, Past Access has you booked on a vacation you won't soon forget. We will put our wheelchair travel skills to the test, traveling on planes, trains, and vaporetti. Andiamo! There's no time to waste, as there is so much to see on the next Past Access. The castle was rebuilt in time with curious designs to not fortify the outside against invaders, but to guard against something from inside the courtyard. The legend of the gateway to hell still survived and endured even through the 20th century. As Nazi Germany began occupying Czechoslovakia, Hitler and Himmler's fascination with the occult brought the SS to Houska Castle. No strategic value was gained by occupying Houska, but her mystical legacy must have piqued the interest of the SS. Much like the Swedish commander Arant, Himmler's SS faction was tasked with research into the occult and his fascination with a cure-all for death. Necromancy and pre-Christian pagan beliefs ran deep through the many high-ranking members of Himmler's inner circle. By the 1940s, Houska Castle would be the wartime location of hundreds of thousands of Jewish and Masonic books rushed out of Berlin for safekeeping. The connection between these books of mystery, the SS, and the hole to hell of Houska Castle could be a strong one, but most likely lost to the dust heap of history with the fall of the Third Reich. So let's take a look inside, because we talked a lot about outside the castle, but let's go take a look inside the courtyard at the gateway to hell. Come on. Through the property gates, we get our first glimpse at the castle facade. Not much of a wow factor compared to other Czech castles, but it's what's inside that brings in the tourists. The windows on the outside are cosmetic. No real defenses for the outside of the castle, as architects put their efforts into fortifying the interior courtyard. A strange concept for sure, until you realize that Houska Castle sits upon a haunted hole to hell. Superstitions and legendary stories are around every corner here. Tours take you above and below, but it is the chapel that holds the most significance. It is here that the Holy Chapel was built to keep the evil spirits at bay. So hi, I'm actually inside Houska Castle right now, and right behind me is a chapel that was built over supposed gateway to hell that's underneath here. And I'm sitting right in the area where it's said that once a fissure had to be able to come up and open up and crack through the rocks, that allowed people to think that there's something was going on from the gateway to hell. So, of course, naturally they built a chapel right on top of it. As you can see around here, there's actually a very, very austere area, but it is open to the sky here, and it is very quiet right now as the tour guide is taking the tour upstairs. So I'm sitting out here by myself, just about over the gateway to hell. So, interesting place. Adorning the chapel walls are odd but striking 15th century frescoes, some dedicated to the Archangel Michael fighting off a dragon. There are also images of the castle from long ago, and some very curious artwork not usually seen upon church walls. She is half woman and half horse, an archer preparing to fire an arrow with her left hand at a human figure. These are some of the mysteries that point to a dark past, a past shrouded in legend and lore of a portal to hell. So that will wrap up our special episode of DYK Dark, Houska Castle, The Gateway to Hell. If you like this episode, make sure you take a look at our Past Access channel, as well as our Past Access website at pastaccess.com. You can see all of our great shows from DYK that range from the history of Pac-Man Mania to the sinking of the Vasa in 1628 in Sweden. It's all there, especially our DYK Dark episodes. And so until next time, for DYK, I'm Pete Collman. Good night.
This has been Past Access Did You Know with Pete Collman. For more information on this topic or other DYK shows, please visit us at pastaccess.com. Be sure to visit our Past Access YouTube channel, like and subscribe.